la opción del canal en inglés o el canal en español. Y ustedes pues escogen el canal en español para escuchar la traducción simultánea del evento. Muchísimas gracias. That's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Bianca. And of course, if there are any questions about the Spanish speaking instructions, please feel free to enter that information in the chat because we want to make sure you're in the right space and that you will be able to connect with your Spanish speaking interpreter. So we're going to go ahead. We're about 2 or 3 minutes before getting started. And we want to ask you guys a question and we want you to respond in the chat. So, first question, and that question is, what is your favorite ice cream? Since we just had lunch, you know, we got to think about something sweet to top off that nice little healthy lunch you had. So we can cheat a little bit and go ahead and put in the chat what your favorite ice cream is. Pistachio, okay. Rocky Road for 2 right now. Pecan praline, okay. You guys are quick to the draw. Man, chocolate. Mint chocolate. Oh, coffee with Snickers. Stop. Butter pecan, cookies and cream. You know what? See, I'm gonna have to go ahead and end my session. I get to close my screen off when Mr. Dorsey comes on, so I'm gonna have to run and give me some ice cream while that happens. Pistachio almond. Okay, I see you, co-host. Someone's favorite ice cream is coffee. Of course, that resonates with me. Awesome. Butter pecan. So I don't know. We need somebody to be tallying this up so we could see who's winning right now. But butter pecan's in there pretty tight. So if you're a butter pecan, I can't even get it out. If you're a butter pecan fan, you might want to go ahead and drop that in the chat because right now butter pecan's in the lead. Lemon ice cream. Interesting, Donald. Lemon ice cream. All right. A tie between coffee and cookie dough. You know, you could just mix those two together. That might make for an interesting mix. I wouldn't eat it, but it's worth a try. Cheesecake ice cream. All right, then. And Rocky Road's coming in a close second. Banana nut and then white chocolate almond. Wow, decadent. Okay, Miss Diggs, salted caramel ice cream. That sounds tricky and good and real fattening. Nice. And you can, you know what? You can change your mind or you can put more than one ice cream because I believe you can have more than one favorite, right? That's just me. Oh gosh, pecan turtle by Creamy Creations. I could just do the pecan turtles without the ice cream. So nice. Butterfinger, not Butterfinger, y'all. Butterfinger. Butterfinger ice cream. That's some good stuff too. Yep, butter pecans. I think butter pecans kind of taking it right now. Chunky Monkey. Okay, I have not had Chunky Monkey ice cream. Can you put in the chat what is in Chunky Monkey? I'm guessing bananas and chocolate, probably. That's unique, Nicole. Thank you. Chocolate covered cherry ice cream. Wow. I see we have some. Oh, wait. Butter pecan is coming in first with 5 votes right now. So we also had that there's not a favorite from Diane, but she wanted to make sure that she can enjoy her run to Dairy Queen. So, all right, I'm getting the cue that we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Vicki Coffey, and I'm your moderator for today's keynote presentation. I'm very honored for that today. Just to make sure you know you're in the right place, we're at the 21st Central Texas African American Family Support Conference. And so if you're not supposed to be here, you might want to bounce off, or if you need some positive motivational information, then please join us and stay with us. For our keynote presentation today, you are in the right seat, finding purpose at the nexus of your passion, proficiency, and positioning. Wow. While we wait for more people to join us, we're just going to keep on. You guys are putting it in the chat. Peanut butter chocolate, Mexican hot chocolate. So before I get started, I would just want to give a shout out to our sponsor for this session, and that sponsor is Methodist Healthcare Ministries. We are so grateful for your support and in helping make this event possible. Now, of course, you know, we got to have a few housekeeping rules. before we get started. And you guys have already heard these, but just to go over them again for people that are just joining us for the first time. This is a safe, supportive environment. So please help us to maintain a respectful, inclusive environment. We want to make sure everybody feels welcome here and feels safe. It says we're supposed to ask you to mute yourself at all times. I think we've done that for you already. So you can jump up and down and sing and say whatever you want to say, and we probably should not hear you. Also, remember that we are live on Facebook, and we want you to use the chat function in Whova to interact with your other attendees. You guys have that down pat. I'm gonna tell you what, I was a little nervous about the Whova thing, but you have that down. We see the chats coming in, people still talking about ice cream, so I think we're good on that. We're also gonna use the Q&A function in Whova for you to ask any questions. And then a reminder, if you feel overwhelmed or you need to talk to someone during the session, please call 512-472-4357. I like to remember that with the 512-472-HELP, H-E-L-P. You're going to press 1 and then 1 again for immediate support if you need to speak with someone right away. And between sessions, we are so blessed to have the Comfort Suite. And the Comfort Suite's a place that provides a safe haven for us to just take a break. And you know, when we're live, you could go over there and Donald will hook you up with oils and all that. But we're doing that still virtually. And you'll find the Comfort Suite in Community under the main navigation in Whova. Lastly, at the end of the session, there will be a link to the workshop evaluation in the chat. And we want to hear from you guys. Like, we work so hard as a planning committee to bring speakers and to create sessions that you'll enjoy, but we get that and we feed off the feedback that you share with us. So make sure that you complete the workshop evaluation at the end. And I said, lastly, I lied. One more thing. I also need to remind you guys that we got merch, y'all. We got nice merchandise. So be sure and check out our online store for your merchandise at ctaafc.com/shop. Whew, I think I'm done keeping house. Please join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, Mr. Billy Dorsey. Just to tell you a little bit about Billy, Billy signed his first recording contract with his group Serenity at the age of 19. And by the age of 21, he found himself homeless, sleeping on cardboard boxes and eating out of trash cans, while battling crippling depression and suicidal thoughts. But Billy refused to succumb to the darkness, y'all. It was darkness all around him, but he was determined to achieve his dream of creating music. He overcame the streets and he reclaimed his dream, y'all. I know, you can go ahead and chat that up. There's some praise behind that. I'll say he overcame the streets and he reclaimed his dream. Billy wrote songs with J.R. Rodham for Nicki Minaj, for T.I., Day 26, and B.O.B. Billy also collaborated with Lecrae Moore of Reach Records to write and produce songs alongside his team, The Bridge, on a series of albums that topped the Christian, gospel, hip hop, and independent Billboard charts. He won a Grammy in 2013, 2 Dove Awards in 2012 and 2013, and 2 Stellar Awards in 2012 and 2013. Billy is an internationally acclaimed public speaker, life coach, preacher, record label CEO, songwriter, producer, and philanthropist. Man, you can learn a little bit more about Billy. I don't know what else is left. What else could one person do, right? You can learn a little bit more about him by reading his bio in Whova. So now let's enjoy this presentation, and then we'll be back together soon for a live Q&A. Mr. Dorsey, take it away.
Thank you, ma'am. It's an honor to be with you guys today. I'd like to start by sharing a story with you if I can. Just humor me for a second. It was but another in a sea of endless nights. This one so cold that I could have seen my breath crystallize before my eyes had there been light left enough to see. I'd been homeless at this point in time nearly a year, long enough to have figured out that I needed to cocoon myself within my sleeping bag in order to allow my body heat to keep me warm enough to survive, lest I freeze to death in the night. This particular night, my friends had brought groceries and made sure that I had enough for me to eat. And I remember going to sleep thinking that I was going to be okay, that no matter how bad my circumstances were in the middle of homelessness, that I might just be able to endure. But as I zipped myself in my sleeping bag and fell asleep in the cold of night, I remember waking up still in the darkness to the sounds of rats eating the food that my friends had brought for me. I remember vividly, like it was yesterday, getting up out of that sleeping bag and shining a light in the direction of my food and watching the vermin that were devouring the last of my sustenance. And I remember getting to the place where I realized that I could not do this anymore. I couldn't go any further. I had taken all that I could take. And I don't know if you guys watching this have ever been there, but that was my end of the road moment where I realized that I could not go any farther the way that I had been going. I remember falling on my knees in that place and crying out before God and saying, "Why am I going through this?" And now, as I look back on that moment all these years later, I can tell you exactly why. It's because I had lost sight of my purpose. Vicky was so kind and she shared my bio and my accolades and what I've been blessed to accomplish in my life. Beyond those awards and beyond celebrations, I am the proud husband of Monica Dorsey, and we are expecting a little girl, baby Raina, that'll be joining us in June. I'm the proud father of 3 other daughters, Asia Nicole and Chloe Marie and Taylor, 19, 13, and 8 going on 85. And I have had the opportunity, because of the success and the access that my success has afforded me, to partner with global organizations like Salvation Army, which I'll share a little bit about later, and NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and the United Bible Societies, which is the world's largest translator, distributor, and publisher of the Word of God, to raise millions of dollars around the world for causes that are near and dear to my heart. All of those things happened because I found the nexus, the intersection between 3 factors that I believe and that I have found in my journey to be true, that these 3 factors, when they are combined in the right way in our lives, they intersect to form our purpose. Those factors are, number 1, our proficiency. Our proficiency is our job skills. It's our gifts and our talents. Whatever you have invested time throughout your life into becoming great at, that is your proficiencies. Number 2 is your passion. What is it that you're passionate about? Your passion is the fire that's inside of you, that when everything around you would come against you and seek to deter you from the path upon which you set your feet, your passion is what causes you to press through any obstacles that you face. When you get tired, passion is what keeps you going. That's the second factor. And number 3 is your positioning. Positioning is, in my estimation, it's defined as your access and the relationships, the opportunities that you have. Your job is a position. The people that you know and who they know, we're always one person away, the degrees of separation, that is your positioning. And when you can combine your proficiency, your passion, and your positioning together, then I say you are in the right seat, or in other words, you are living a life of purpose. If I share my story, as I mentioned, Vicky shared about my accolades and what I've been blessed to accomplish. My journey for me started with proficiency. And I love to tell the story. When I was very young, maybe 3 or 4 years old, if that, my mom walked in our living room while I was singing along with some song on the radio. I hadn't yet been singing in front of people, but I had a gift to sing from a very young age. And I probably was singing Candy Girl by New Edition, or, Cool It Now, or something like that. And I remember like it was yesterday, my mom walking up behind me without me knowing she was in the room, as I'm singing and dancing and having a good time and enjoying that moment with just me and the radio. And then my mom startles me when she walks up behind and says, if you can sing in here with this radio, you can get your butt up in that church on Sunday and sing too. I was mortified, guys. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a Christmas program at our church, and we had the opportunity for all of the kids to get up and give a speech or to sing or do whatever they do. And I was perfectly fine with speaking, but getting up in front of people to sing, it was a no from me. I did not want to do it. But my mom didn't leave it up to my decision. She made the decision for me. And I remember looking out in the congregation, and I'm standing there with a microphone that had to be about as big as I was at the time. And I look out at the congregation, and it's all eyes on me. And at 3 years old, it feels like everybody's doing this. And I look over to the side in the church, and there's a door to the foyer of our church that we were in at the time. And my mom is standing just on the other side of the glass door. So the congregation can't see her, but I can. And she's standing there with her arms crossed with a belt dangling under her arm, looking at me. And she mouths the words, "You better sing." And I look at my mom and I look back at the crowd and I said, "Yes, Jesus loves me." And I'm crying, and I mean, it had to be in my mind at that point in time the worst experience ever. I'm crying and I'm singing, and I just know that these people are still looking at me like this, and my mom's there with the belt dangling. But when I get to the end of the song and I open my eyes and I look out at the crowd, I see people crying, and I see people with their hands raised, giving God praise, and I see that the Spirit has fallen in the church. And I remember, I'll never forget it like it was yesterday. I remember thinking to myself at that young of an age, if there's something that I can do that makes people feel like that, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I dedicated my life to becoming great as a musician, as a singer, as a songwriter. Every opportunity that I got to be in a recording studio or to write a song or to listen to my favorite artists on the radio and pick apart their songs. And once the internet came around to where they started having YouTube and all these things where you could see behind the scenes, I soaked up all of that knowledge. I found mentors and people that I could look up to that they had accomplished what I hoped to accomplish, like Quincy Jones and many other people, that Dr. Dre and other people that I just thought were the best at what I wanted my life to be. And I studied those things throughout my entire life until I became proficient in music. I mentioned Quincy Jones. If we're talking about proficiency, Quincy Jones is the most successful individual music producer in the history of the music industry. And the facts bear this out. It's not hyperbole. He is nominated for a record 80 Grammy Awards. He's won 28. And I don't need to remind you guys, if you're a fan of anything Quincy Jones has done, you know that not only did he work with Frank Sinatra and all of these other big band, Count Basie and Ella Fitzgerald and all of these other major big band and jazz stars, and he was a young protege of Ray Charles and a close friend of his until his death. But he produced this album some of you guys might have heard of. It's an album, I think it's called Thriller by Michael Jackson, that is the second biggest selling record of all time, with, at last count, 33 million records sold. It's only beaten by, if I remember correctly, the Greatest Hits by the Eagles, which I don't know if we can count a Greatest Hits as the biggest selling album of all time. But he has gone on to go far beyond music to create things like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He gave Will Smith the opportunity to star in that, and The Color Purple, which he was one of the executive producers on, and even the theme song from Sanford and Son, Vibe magazine, which was influential in my early development as an artist and understanding how fashion and music work closely together. Quincy Jones is the greatest producer ever. But if you know his story, you would understand that even with all of those accolades, it didn't start with the awards. It never starts with the end result. It always starts at the very beginning. And Quincy Jones had a very humble beginning. His father and his mother and his brother Lloyd, who lived with him, they didn't know that he was going to be great as a musician. And if you know his story, you're aware that his mother actually had a nervous breakdown and was taken to a mental hospital. And his father ended up remarrying a woman who did not love Quincy or his brother Lloyd. And so Quincy, at a very young age, in his early preteens, had to fend for himself and for his younger brother. He talks in his book Q, an autobiography, about how he was heading down the wrong road because although they were initially in Chicago, even though they moved to the country to get away from that when his parents divorced, Quincy had seen street gangs up close and personal. He had almost been killed by one, as he talks about in his story. And he was taking his younger brother and all of the other young guys that looked up to him down that same road, thinking that I've got to be like the gangsters and I've got to be like the guys that are running the city and that have so much authority and that they're the ones making the money and driving the flashy cars and all of those things. And he was taking his younger brother and his friends one day to go and raid a place called the Armory, where they were looking for food because his stepmother would not feed him. She would only feed her children and not he and his younger brother Lloyd. So as they're breaking into this property called the Armory on a military base, they're breaking into this place so that they can steal food. In one of the rooms, after they had gorged themselves on ice cream and cookies and all the other sweets that they found, In one room off to the side, there was a piano. And as Quincy broke into that room, he says in his autobiography that he heard the voice of God tell him, you better go into that room and touch that piano. And see, for this young man whose mother had had a nervous breakdown, and so he grew up motherless, and the woman that could have been a surrogate mother to him did not love him, didn't care for him, did not want to provide for him. Quincy had a void in him that was not filled by a person, but he talks about in his book how the minute he touched the first note on the piano, the void in his heart was filled forever. Nothing ever made him feel the way that music made him feel. And as Quincy talks about it in his book, he says that every day after that, he wasn't going back to the armory for food. He would break into the armory every day at 11 and 12 years old to play that piano because it's the only thing that gave him solace. And from that initial finding of something that moved him like nothing else, he discovered the thing that made him special. He discovered the thing that he knew he wanted his life to be. Just like my moment singing in front of the church. And I was horrified at first, but when you open your eyes and you see that something inside of you can touch people in that way, it changes you forever. And from that initial seminal experience with Quincy Jones, he went on to study music in all of its forms. He traveled to Paris as a teenager to study with Nadia Boulanger, who, if you're a composer of music, you know that she is was one of the greatest composers and teachers of composition in music history, the greatest composers of all time. Film and orchestra would go to Paris to study with her. Quincy had the opportunity to do that. He learned from Ray Charles how every song has a soul, and as a producer, you have a responsibility to be true to it. He learned the scope of music, not only working with Frank Sinatra and Count Basie and with Ella Fitzgerald, but he was also able to, as I mentioned, to transfer that knowledge that he gained in jazz and blues and big band and scoring for films, because Quincy was actually the first African-American composer to ever receive full screen credit for composing the score for a movie in Hollywood. He wasn't the first to do it, but he was the first that was respected enough that he got full credit for it, paving the way for young men like me that wanted the opportunity to score for TV and film. But he parlayed all of that knowledge into the work that he did with Michael Jackson, which a lot of kids today won't know all of his history. They'll know what he did with Michael because Michael was the king of pop. But all of those things that I'm mentioning to you guys now were only possible because Quincy Jones developed a proficiency that made him great. I would ask each of you guys, and we'll do a Q&A after this. So as I'm talking, if there's questions you have about anything, jot them down because I want to be able to answer them all. What are you proficient in? When we look at so many celebrities, a lot of them follow in the footsteps of their famous mother or father that do something very special. The Rock, who is the biggest movie star in the world, and certainly the biggest earning movie star in the world. I believe I was doing my research. He made $80 million last year doing films in terms of what his revenue was or what he generated, his earnings as an actor, $80 million. But if you know the Rock story, Dwayne Johnson's story, he started as a wrestler. Well, guess what? His father, Rocky Johnson, who passed away last year during COVID, was a wrestler. So although The Rock went to play football in Florida on a football scholarship and wanted the opportunity to make it to the NFL, that did not happen. When he came home and his dad, Rocky, came to come pick him up, and he had $7 in his pocket, which if you know anything about The Rock, you know the name of his production company is $7 Productions, because that's all he had in his pocket when his dad came to pick him up after his failed stint in the CFL, because he tried to play in the CFL and in college football. He ended up learning the craft that his father did before him and became so great in that, developed such a persona in that it offered him and afforded him the opportunity to transition from what he initially became proficient in, which was wrestling and being an entertainer on television, of course, into becoming an entertainer on an even bigger scale in films. And now, because of him developing proficiency in films, now he's not just starring in films, but he's producing films. He's producing television shows. He's co-arranging these entire orchestra of networks in relation to, specifically relating to Shazam. If you're aware of the DC Comics movie Shazam, Oh, The Rock was behind all of that because Black Adam, who he's been talking about for a decade, is one of the arch nemesis of Shazam. So even things that are happening in Hollywood that don't have his face on it bear his fingerprint. And it's all as a result of him following in the footsteps of his father. Angelina Jolie, who was one of my favorite actresses for a number of years, her father, John Voight, is a famous actor. And now they're both Academy Award winning. She followed in his footsteps. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and Carrie Fisher, who passed away at Princess Leia, her mother, Debbie Reynolds, was a famous actress. So somebody that was such a hero to me and is a hero to my daughters, because they love Star Wars, because dad loves it, so he's got to show his kids. My girls and women all around the world were inspired by Princess Leia, but Carrie Fisher only became an actress because she was inspired by her mother. What are you proficient in? What have you seen somebody do, whether it's a parent or a mentor or a hero of yours as a child? What have you seen them do that inspired you, that you developed some measure of skill, gifting, or talent in? Because it's not enough to just be talented. God can give you a gift. God can give you a talent. But it's when you make it into a skill, when you invest the time and the energy into becoming great, into becoming iconic within the realm of whatever it is you've been gifted to do. That's when you're able to start down the road to your purpose with your proficiency. I'll share one more story about proficiency, one that you guys probably heard before, but that as I was doing my research for my book, In the Right Seat, that I released during COVID, talking about this very thing, it really blew me away. I don't know if any of you guys love KFC chicken, but if you do, you've seen obviously the logo or the icon for KFC is Colonel Sanders. Well, Colonel Harlan Sanders, we know him for all of the recipes and all of those biscuits that I can't get enough of. I'm big on fitness, but I love the KFC biscuits, y'all. You just got to pray for me. But we know him for what he accomplished later in life. But if you know his story, you know that his mother and father, Meredith and Wilbur Sanders, that his dad died when he was 6 years old. That he grew up very dirt poor with two younger siblings. And when his father died when he was 6 years old, Harlan's his mother had to go work in the tomato canneries so that she could provide for them. She sewed for people. She became a seamstress so that she could provide for Harlan and his two younger siblings. So guess what? When he was 6 years old, Harlan Sanders had to learn how to cook to provide for his younger siblings because his mother was working two jobs in the absence of his father, who had passed away. He didn't start frying chicken to make millions of dollars. He started doing it and built a proficiency in it out of necessity. Sometimes the thing that you're going to do that determines your trajectory is not something glamorous, but it is something essential that you learn how to do to survive, and it ends up creating a life for you. Harlan Sanders, as he went through life, he got away from the thing that he did as a kid out of necessity. In my research, I saw that he joined the military, that he worked as a lawyer, that he was even a driver for people for some period of time, that he did all kind of odd ends jobs just to make ends meet. His first wife divorced him and left him with their two children. She took the kids and left because Colonel Sanders could not keep a steady job in his early 30s. He had the proficiency all along that would define his destiny, but he was running from the thing that he only did out of necessity, only did for survival. And it took an opportunity that he got later in life to manage a gas station where he was able to say, you know what? I've got all these people coming through my gas station. I'm going to cook my chicken for them and provide meals to make extra income. And it became so successful that although he did face other challenges, he was able to start licensing out his chicken to other places around the first region, then the state, then nationwide. He was able to start licensing out. He would drive in his car and his second wife would sleep in the car with him while he would drive around the country to license his chicken to places to sell as long as they gave him a nickel a person. He became so successful at doing that that he made millions of dollars licensing his chicken out to all these different places. And if my research serves me correctly, in 1964, he sold the rights to his name and brand for $2 million. Now I want you to get this. Colonel Sanders was born in 1890, if I remember correctly. But in 1964, he sold his business for $2 million. Now, I'm pretty good at math, and if my math serves me correctly, that's 74 years old. Something that he started doing at 6. He made his first significant earnings at 74 years old from something he started doing as a child. What are you proficient in that you may not think you could build a career from, but that could define your legacy and change the lives of everybody connected to you? Proficiency is the first delineator of purpose, but it's not the only one. The second one that I'd like to talk with you guys about is passion. Like I said before, passion is the fire, it's the fuel, it is the thing, it's the battery in your back that when you find yourself in difficult situations, that where everyone around you is quitting and they're saying, I can't do this anymore, and they're throwing in the towel, they're ready to walk away. Passion is the thing that would compel you to keep going where everyone else has turned back. Passion is the thing that if you see athletes, especially Olympic level athletes, when they get hurt, how many of you guys have seen these YouTube videos where somebody's running and they have a hamstring pull or they tear their Achilles or something like that, and everyone else around them would have quit, but they have to keep going to get to the finish line, even though they're injured, and you see people come and run alongside them to help them get there. Well, why do you think those people come and join alongside them? It's because their passion is palpable, it's tangible, it's something that's readily evident, it's something you couldn't escape if you wanted to. What is your passion? And so many of us in this day and age, we have passion confused. We think passion is this romantic, beautiful thing. Oh, I'm passionate about that, and I'm passionate about this. And for some people, it can be that. But for a lot of people, passion is driven by pain. I want to share another story with you. Some of you guys, if you're fans of America's Got Talent, you might be familiar with someone named Christina Wells. She's an artist that I have had the great pleasure to produce and to know very well. She's a sister to me, and I love her dearly. But a couple years ago, I didn't know anything about her. I don't watch AGT. I've been so busy in the studio that those reality shows, unless one of our artists is competing, I just don't have the time to watch them. But I got a call from a friend of mine named Nicholas Johnson, who's a phenomenal producer and bassist here in Houston. And he said, Billy, I want you to come in to write a song that I'm producing for this new artist, Christina Wells. She was a finalist on America's Got Talent. She's getting ready to release her first song. They hired him to produce it, and he reached out to me as a songwriter to come in and write the song. And so I don't like to research people when I'm working with them. Normally, if you're working with an established artist, you got to do your homework because you want to know what they've accomplished. What's their style? Where are they trending musically and even thematically? You want to know where they're going, so you don't write songs for where they've already been unless that's the trend. You want to write for where they're going to take them into the next phase of their career. But for Christina Wells, this was her first ever single. She had never released anything original at this point. She'd only done covers in the year since she'd been on AGT. So I was getting the opportunity to write her first ever original song that would reach her millions of fans. And so I didn't do any homework. I wanted to walk in the studio with her and let Christina tell me who Christina was. And so I walk in the studio, and if you guys know her, Christina has this huge personality. She is all light and color and feels and all of the good things that you can't help but love. And so I get to the studio before her, and when she walks in, she's like, hey, Billy Dorsey. And I'm like, hey, Christina Wells. And she says to me, so what are we doing today? And I said, I don't know. And she looks at me for a second, and we laugh and we sit down. And I said, I didn't read anything about you. I didn't want to know anything about you. I want you to tell me about you. And she starts just telling me her story and how she got to AGT and telling me about her 2 sons and all of the struggles and hard times that she's been through in life. And she's sharing this story with me, and I can see that she's getting very emotional as she's talking about all of the things that shaped her into the Christina Wells that Simon Cowell said on AGT is one of the greatest singers he had seen at that point. And I remember asking her at the end of her sharing her story, I said, thank you for sharing that with me. I really appreciate it. Now you're going to have the opportunity to speak to your millions of fans. There's a little girl out there that's gone through the same things that you've gone through. What would you say to her if this song was that? She thought about it for a second, and then Christina started to cry. And what she told me in that moment, guys, was that throughout her entire life, she had been fat shamed. She had been bullied incessantly by kids and by adults and teachers and even members of her own family, people that should have loved her and covered her and protected her. They bullied her because she was different. They bullied her because she was overweight. They bullied her because she was loud and because she was boisterous. And because she didn't like the way that she looked and she had insecurities about that, she said, you know what, I'm not going to shy away. I'm going to allow my personality to also take up a lot of space. So you're going to see that every part of me fits. But she was ostracized as a result of that. And people treated her badly as a child. And as she's crying, she tells me, Billy, if I could talk to a little Christina, I would say to her that it's not about what people want you to be. And you don't have to let people put you in their box. That no, you're not going to be quiet. And no, you're not going to let them lock you down and make you feel like you're less than. She said, Billy, I would tell them that they need to raise their head up and poke out their chest and tell everybody that would try to bully them that I'm here and you're going to love me. I'm coming, ready or not. And yes, she did take that "You're Gonna Love Me" from Jennifer Holliday, and we had a good laugh about that from Dreamgirls. But as she's talking, I started writing. And the words of Christina Wells' first ever single released after her stardom on America's Got Talent is a song called "Ready or Not." And it says those exact same things. No, I'm not gonna fit in your box. No, I'm not gonna be quiet. You know, you're not going to lock me up and hide the key. You're not going to do that to me. I'm going to be everything that I am. I'm coming, ready or not. That song, guys, became so successful that USA Today covered it and listed it in their magazine or their publication as a rallying cry for bully teens. And this past year, just after COVID, we did an interview. We produced an interview with Christina Wells in partnership with KHOU Channel 11 here in Houston, that we shot at my recording studio, Wire Road in Houston, Texas. And that interview, sharing the debut of Christina's song and talking about the same story that the song encompasses, the same thing I just shared with you, was nominated for an Emmy, which is the biggest award in television this past year. Something that started from Christina's passion, her sharing her heart and talking about all of the things that hurt her, that has gone on now not only to be recognized for the biggest award in television, but to become a theme song for young kids that have been bullied for any of the things that Christina has faced. She found her passion and it led her to her purpose. Some of you guys watching this might say, well, Billy, I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what that is. And I would tell you guys that I had the opportunity to see some years ago, 2015, I was a youth pastor at a church here called Higher Dimension in Houston. And I got the opportunity to go to hear a pastor that I greatly respect. His name is Andy Stanley. Some of you guys might be familiar with him. Andy Stanley, we got to go to a conference that he was doing at his church there in Alpharetta, Georgia. And he was talking about finding your why. And one of the things that he says to this huge auditorium full of pastors and youth leaders like myself and other people that are responsible for shepherding people, he says, anytime that a leader connects to their deeper passion, then they start to attract other people to them that are not even in alignment necessarily with the life of that person. They didn't have to go through the same things as you, but they're connected to the passion that drives you. It's what brings together teams that become greater than the sum of their parts. And he said something after that that changed my life forever. He said, for everybody in this room that you don't know what your passion is, what breaks your heart? And in that moment, in this silent auditorium, you start hearing everybody go, wow, wow. What breaks your heart? I want to share something with you guys from even last year. I had the opportunity to do a workshop as a part of this very same conference in Austin. And as I was giving this talk and I was talking about this same section, and I'm so excited to be able to be here with you guys to share this story now, because it is full circle from what we were together last year doing at the same time. We had the opportunity to give a workshop in Austin as a part of this conference. And as I was talking about the pain paradigm and sharing that perspective, I asked the audience, I said, you know, what have you endured in your life that has driven you from passion to finding your purpose? And there was a young lady that stood up in the auditorium, or in the space. It wasn't an auditorium, but in the space where I was speaking. She stood up and she was crying as she stood up. And it seems like a lot of people crying, I know, but she was crying as she stood up. And I'm looking at her like, what is she about to say? Because she was very quiet during the whole time that I'd been speaking up to that point. She stood up and they passed her the microphone and she said, Billy, when I was a very young child, I watched my parents put my grandparents into a nursing home because my parents were both working, my grandparents were getting older and they were starting to have accidents, and my parents could not care for them and care for us and provide for us. So they thought they were doing the best thing for my grandparents by putting them in a nursing home. And as she's crying and sharing this story, she says, but when my grandparents went to that nursing home, the people abused them. They abused my grandparents. And my parents blamed themselves for what they saw happen to my grandparents because they put them there. So she, as a very young child, saw the pain that decisions her parents made, thinking it was for the best for her grandparents, caused all of them pain. By this point, all of us are crying. I'm crying. Everybody in the auditorium is crying. And she says, but you know what I do now? I'm an administrator for a nursing home. She went and got a degree. That passion led her to become proficient in what it takes to administer a nursing home, to run a nursing home. And she said to that crowd of people that were in that room, silent and crying at this point, tissues being passed around. Somebody had to bring me tissues. I mean, she's sharing the story. And she says, you know why I did that, Billy? Because I never wanted another kid to have to go through what I went through, or to watch their parents go through what my parents went through, or to watch grandparents have to go through what my grandparents went through. Her pain that she experienced as a child directly led her to become proficient in an area where she could better impact the lives of other people so they never have to go through what she went through. What breaks your heart? If I'm talking in terms of my passion outside of my love for music, the thing that breaks my heart is how being homeless, how people overlook that, and how many people are suffering in that place, because a lot of folks that you see that are homeless, they're not there because of drugs and alcohol. I know, because I was one of them. I've never tried a drug in my life, and my first time ever drinking alcohol was at my wedding in Santorini, Greece. I got drunk on 2 glasses of champagne, and I don't think I'll ever drink another glass of champagne again. It didn't go so well. I'm telling y'all, my wife and my best man and the rest of our party had to take me back down the mountain in Santorini, Greece at 4 o'clock in the morning on my wedding night to go get some food to eat because I got drunk on 2 glasses of champagne. I was not homeless because of drugs or alcohol or any type of addiction. There are many people that are homeless on the streets, not because of either of those things. It has nothing to do with addiction. A lot of them are there because of untreated or undiagnosed mental illness. That breaks my heart, because some of them had wives and had children and had careers, and they got sick. And we don't throw away people when they have cancer. We don't throw away people when they get diabetes, or when they get lupus, or when they get some other illness that can take them out of here if they don't care for it the right way. We don't throw people away. But when people get mental health challenges, we throw them away. That breaks my heart. And so I have used every bit of influence that my success, if you even want to call it that my name has brought. That's the better term. That my name has brought. Every opportunity, every bit of connection, every door that I can walk through because people respect what we've been blessed to accomplish. I use that to help people with mental health challenges. I sit on the board for the National Alliance on Mental Illness here in Houston. And with homelessness, period, raising millions of dollars. I'll share more about that when we talk about how all the aspects of your purpose come together. It breaks my heart because I went through it. And some of you guys are watching this and you're saying, but Billy, I've never been through anything that would cause me pain. I had a good life. I didn't go through anything traumatic. And that's okay. But let me tell you how you find your passion. What do you see other people go through that moves you? What is the thing that you look around, or you look on the news, or you watch what's going on in the world around you, and you see this particular thing happening for you, and that moves you and compels you and touches your heart? It inspires you to want to do something. Your pain paradigm doesn't mean that it has to be your pain. It means that their pain has to move. Wherever the pain comes from, it has to move you to action. Passion is the thing that drives you forward when everything around you says to quit. What is that for you? So we've talked about proficiency. We've talked about passion. Let me tell you a story about passion. Adam Walsh was a 6-year-old kid in July of 1981. His father, John Walsh, who you probably heard of, his mother, Reeve Walsh. His father, John, was a real estate developer who was building high-rises in Hollywood, Florida. He had a $26 million property in 1981 that he was building, that he was very excited about. And he loved his wife, Reeve, and their son, John. very, 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 very much. As son Adam, very, very, very much. Adam goes to the store, the department store one day with Reeve, and he sees 4 kids playing video game. Adam says to his mom, hey, I really want to play games with these kids. Is it okay if I go and play with them, Mom, please? And she says, you know what, Adam, it's okay. Go ahead and go play. I'm going to be 3 hours over. I'll be able to see the top of your head. Not more than 3 minutes go by. Reeve realizes she can no longer see Adam's head as she's looking over the top of the aisles. She goes over to where there were 5 kids, including her son, playing video games. And to her horror, she realizes that there are no kids there. And not only that, but the security guards will not even tell her where the kids are or call on the loudspeaker to ask anyone, have you seen these children? She gets on the payphone outside, because again, this is before cell phones, and she calls her husband, John, who's away in Hollywood, 30 minutes away from where she and Adam were shopping. And he comes speeding down there and he's raising all kinds of hell. He's like, hey, listen, I need you guys to get the SWAT team down here. I need you to get all the people here to look for my son. Why is there no action? But what he came to find out was in 1981, there was no system in place for missing children to find them. They go on Good Morning America. They have to raise $100,000 to give away as basically, if you find my son, we're going to give you a reward for any information leading to the discovery of my son. That's the only way they could even get media to cover it on a national level. The media would not even cover this missing child. Beautiful son. And unfortunately, the day that John goes on Good Morning America with that $100,000 reward for information leading to the safe recovery of his son, they find their son Adam's head in a ditch not far from where they were living. I'm sorry this stuff moves me. I'm sorry that passion is something that I will always connect to. And as John is dealing with the rage of thinking of the fact that his son's future was stolen from him, and that's his legacy, and that was everything he was building for. John was consumed with thoughts of revenge for the person that could have killed their son. They never found his body. They only found his head. John is consumed with rage at the thought of somebody could take the life of my son. He started dedicating himself to getting revenge on the man or woman at that moment. He didn't know who it was that could have done that to his son. And you know who pulled him back? His wife, Reeve. Because what John didn't know while he was in the middle of plotting revenge and stewing in his anger and the venom that he felt as a result of losing his son, he wasn't aware that his wife was receiving all these letters because of their Good Morning America experience and them being on the show from all of these families, not only issuing condolences and praying for them, but from other families who were going through the same thing. And Reeve came to John and said something that changed his life and the lives of countless families forever. She said, John, we have forgotten who the real victim is. The real victim isn't you and me. We're still here. The real victim is our sweet boy, Adam. And if we don't use this platform to help other families that are going through the same thing we're going through, then we miss the opportunity to honor our son's legacy. And you know what John did in that moment? First of all, he listened to his wife. So any husbands that are watching this, that's good advice for you. Listen to your wives. They know the right thing. My wife's not here, but if she was here, she'd say that. I know that's right. He listened to his wife, and he channeled all of that anger, all of that fury into first building infrastructure so that if any other child was missing, they wouldn't have to wonder how we pull police together and how we connect to the media and how we communicate. How do we get the word out that my son or daughter is missing? He helped to build that infrastructure. But he also then went on to form a company that many of you guys have heard of. It's called America's Most Wanted. And it was a long-running television show, but also a website and organizations coordinated with that helped to arrest more than 1,200 convicts that had done wrong to adults, children, whatever, people that were running from the law, more than 1,200 arrests. And get this, they brought more than 60 children safely alive and well home to their families. If John and Reeve Walsh had not taken the pain that they felt at the loss of their son, at his life being stolen from them, and turned it into purpose, that's 60 other families that would have had to go through the same thing that they went through. What breaks your heart? What is the pain that you feel that could compel you to find your life's purpose? And I often say when I get the opportunity to share and to talk in this type of a setting, that while proficiency is important, and that's getting whatever your skills, your gifts, your talents are together, that's vital. And while finding your passion and learning how to harness that is equally important, they're not enough. Take Michael Phelps, who is the most decorated swimmer and Olympian of all time. He has the most gold medals of all time for individual sports. He is the most awarded Olympian ever. If you take him with the proficiency that allowed him to become the world's greatest swimmer ever, and the passion that led him to become great, that led him to spend all of his hours as a youth and a young man in the water, developing that skill, developing that style, developing that ability to cut through the water like a leaf flying through the air, like a bird soaring on the wind. But you take him with that proficiency and that passion, and you put him in the middle of the desert where there is no water. How effective would he ever be at realizing his purpose? Not very, because proficiency and passion without being in the right position will never allow you to realize your purpose. I'll share a story of my own, if I can, with you guys about positioning. I had the opportunity in 2011 to have been working for a company. You guys know that I was homeless. That was 20 years ago. I'll give you a little bit of context. And in the time after that, I started working on music and building my name and working with a bunch of artists here in Houston, but none of the major success had happened yet. And so I had a family and I needed to provide, and music wasn't yet doing that consistently. And so I needed to have a job. And my gift is as a trainer, as a speaker. What I'm doing now, I was doing this in corporate America, where the company would develop software. I would create the training programs for that software, and then I would travel around the country teaching people how to use the software. So even me, public speaking is a proficiency that God blessed me to develop during that time. But in this company, I worked there 7 years. I was going to that job every morning from 9 to 5. I want to paint the picture for you so you get this. I would get up every morning at 8 o'clock, 7:30, whatever time, be at the office from 9 until 5. At 5 o'clock every day, I would leave there, go get something to eat, and then drive to the recording studio that we had across town on Savoy here in Houston. I would be in that studio from 6:30, 7 o'clock at night until 2 o'clock in the morning every single night, then drive the hour back home to where I lived in Humble, sleep for 4 hours if I had that, get up the next morning and go back to work. And I did that for 7 years. But in the 6th year, I had the opportunity to start working with an artist named Lecrae. I got the opportunity to produce, or in that instance, to write and to do some vocal stuff on a record called Rehab the Overdose for him. That was the first #1 Billboard record I'd ever had. But guess what? I was sitting at my desk in that office when I got the phone call that we were doing our record. I get a call that says, Billy, go to iTunes. You got the #1 album in the country. And so I'm sitting at a desk in a cubicle, and I look on iTunes on my work computer. Don't do this. I'm just telling you what happened. Work computer, and I yelled so loud. I was like, oh my God, we got a #1. And everybody comes running over. They're all running around to see what's going on. The vice president of the company, who was my boss, he comes and sticks his head around the corner. He goes, what's going on here? And I said, I got the #1 album in the country. We got the #1. And he said, that's very good. And get back to work. So everybody has to disperse and go back to work. And I'm sitting there at my desk and I'm literally bouncing. Well, guess what? That album goes on to be nominated for the Dove Award for the best rap album, which is Dove Awards is like the Grammys of Christian music. And so I'm on a paid leave. I had vacation time. I take a week to go to Atlanta to the Fox Theater where they're hosting the Dove Awards. So I'm there with Lecrae, and I'm there with Tadashi and Andy Mineo and all of the artists that were signed to Lecrae's label. And we're celebrating this moment together. And guess what? That album goes on to win the Dove Award for the best Christian album, for best Christian hip hop album. I'm there that whole week. We're mapping out the game plan for what we're going to work on next. I get vision from Lecrae and from his team on what the next album's going to be, and we're a part of the family, so we're working. But guess what I have to do at the end of that week? I got to go right back to Houston, and Monday morning, I got to be right back in that office again. So I'll share this, and then I want to offer the opportunity for questions. I get to that office on Monday morning, and I do the same thing, 9 to 5, clock out from there, clock into my purpose at 6:30. I'm in the studio till 2. I do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday comes. I get to the office that morning, and when it's lunchtime, the vice president, the same one who came and stuck his head around and said, "What's going on here?" He comes and says, "Billy, I need to see you in my office." And if you've ever worked in corporate America, you know when somebody tells you, "I need you to come see me in the office," and they close the door, it's probably not going to go the way you want it to go. So I walk into his office and I sit down at his desk and I'm like, trepidation. I'm sure he could see it on my face. And I'm like, "What's going on?" He says, "Billy, we Googled you. You're everywhere." And he turns his computer screen around and there is a magazine cover that somebody has done with a picture of me talking about from homeless to Dove Award winner. I didn't even know that they did the magazine. The week that I was there, my story went viral of my journey to get to that point, from going from homeless, eating out of trash cans, sleeping on cardboard boxes, to producing this #1 album that hits #1 in multiple countries, and now then wins the biggest award in Christian music. And he says, "We're very proud of you. We knew this was your dream when you came here, but we're going to have to let you go." And I'm like, "Let me go? I was on PTO." He's like, "No, it's not that. We knew that this was your dream. This is your thing that you wanted to do with your life. And so now that you've won this award, you're going to want to go and pursue that opportunity. And that's fine. We want you to do that, but we need somebody that's going to be here in this position while you go and chase the one that's for you." And you know what? I couldn't do anything but respect it. I got up and I shook his hand. I told him, "Thank you for the 7 years and for the opportunity to provide for my family." And I'll share this with you as I close. The album that we began the very next day after I had been let go from that job after 7 years, that album, Gravity by Lecrae, on February 13th, 2013, won the Grammy Award for Best Gospel Album. If I had still been working that job in the wrong position, trying to juggle my life with all of the things that I knew I was called to do, with the things I had to do to provide, I would have never had the opportunity. We did 13 songs to land the one on the album that won the Grammy. I wouldn't have had the time to commit to that had I still been working in corporate America. What is your position? And how do you marry the three together to find your purpose? I want to provide the opportunity to answer any questions that I can. And I thank you for the opportunity to share with you guys today.
Whew. Wow. Thank you so much, Billy Dorsey, for your amazing delivery, first of all, and just your blessing us with such wonderful, poignant, on the spot stories. They're just perfect. I know they really resonated with me, and I know they did with our listeners as well, our participants. So welcome back, guys. And I know you can put in the chat, and you are blowing it up. If we were in person, you guys would be standing and clapping, and I know you'd get a standing ovation. So let's give Mr. Dorsey a standing ovation in our chat as we start with our Q&As, guys. Thank you so much. So we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. I know there's going to be a lot. If you'd like to speak, just remember that you can raise your virtual hand and you'll be unmuted so that you can share. Remember also, you can put your questions for our speaker in the Q&A section in Whova, and we'll get started. And again, we'll answer as many Q&As as we can. There's one in there now, so we'll start with this one. Mr. Dorsey, what was the turning point of your life that changed you completely? That day when it changed, and you told your story about your job and how they gracefully let you go. But can you tell us if there's anything else that you felt like was the day where it all changed for you?
The day when it all changed for me was the day that I woke up and the rats were eating my food. What I didn't share here is that I was suicidal at that time. I was battling with mental health challenges. I was ready to end my life. And that moment, and knowing that I had a greater purpose, that my life wasn't destined to end there, that was the day that it all changed. And everything for me after that, I worked a job to provide, but I pursued my dream and my purpose wholeheartedly from that moment forward. That was when it changed, not when they let me go.
Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Very welcome.
We have another question, and the question is, our governor is at odds with Mayor Adler, who is our mayor here in Austin, about this homelessness situation. Mayor Adler wants to purchase hotels to put to where he can house homeless people. And first question is, will that work? And then where do they go from here? This person says they're just confused about what's going on with homeless people.
Of course. Well, I'll try to oversimplify it as much as I can. There's two classes of homeless people. There are people that are there out of circumstance, that it's not their desire to be homeless. And then there are people who have truly given up, whether that is because of medical reasons beyond their control, or I met people that just thought life was too hard. It's easier to be here and ask for money. For the people that are there that can be helped, there is hope. And I've been following that situation very closely, because it's something that if it works there, I'm going to lobby for it here. For many people, and myself included, all I needed was a place. You can't go and apply for a job if you can't take a bath and clean yourself up. You can't get back on your feet without stability. They will not hire you if you don't have an address. Like, there are so many things that having a place that you can call even a temporary home gives you stability, to a springboard, a launching pad to take off with your life again. For those people, it will be a blessing. The biggest concern I have is security. How are they going to keep people safe in that hotel that might still be struggling? Because some of them are struggling with addiction issues. Are they going to provide resources for those people? Are they going to provide job opportunities, clothing donations, haircuts, the things that we take for granted that you need to start life again? Are they going to provide those things as well? A hotel is a start, but it's not the entire solve. I think it's a good idea. The execution is what I'll be watching closely.
Absolutely. And we appreciate you for, one, being an onlooker, but being an advocate as well. Thank you so much
Always.
for that.
Of course.
A question from Audrey Jackson. How do we move past fear to purpose? I'm sorry. How do we move past fear to pursue dream and purpose?
You have to think of what you stand to lose if you don't. Fear is a powerful motivator. One of my biggest heroes in the music industry, his name is Jimmy Iovine. He and Dr. Dre, he was the guy that founded Interscope Records. So all the stuff that Dr. Dre and all those guys did was on his label. He and Dr. Dre also became billionaires with Beats by Dre when it sold to Apple. Jimmy Iovine gave a talk where he says, fear is a powerful deterrent if it's working against you, but if you can learn how to turn it behind you and make it a propellant, a motivator, something to push you forward, then it gives you the boost to move forward. You know how I use my fear? My fear, I allow it to become something that propels me forward by saying, if I don't work as hard as I can, if I don't create these opportunities, I could end up homeless again. I could end up right back where I was, because I wasn't there because of medical conditions or drugs or anything like that. I signed a bad record deal that landed me as homeless. If I don't make the right decisions now, I allow that fear to drive me forward to success. That's how you do it. You're not going to get rid of fear. I've talked with multi-platinum recording artists that if I name some of their names, you'd say, oh my God, they're afraid. When they get on stage to sing, they have fear. They have the butterflies. They're scared. They don't know if their voice is going to cooperate, but they use that as motivation, not allowing it to become something that's a roadblock. Fear is not going to go away. It's how you use it that will determine your success or failure. Put it behind you as a win to push you forward. If I don't do this, what do I stand to lose? That's how you use your fear.
Nice. Thank you. I know that's a big one for a lot of us. Fear of even just getting started, right? Just trying to figure out how do I even start?
Of course.
So we had another comment about fear, or question, and that was, the comment says, that certainly was a wow. I have always enjoyed the work of you, Mr. Dorsey. And with having had lived experience of pushing through pain to find purpose, what advice would you give to someone with mental health issues to push past that fear to find their purpose? And you actually did that, right? You just answered that question in so many words, so it was a repeat.
I did, but it's a great question nonetheless. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I can add is surround yourself with your people. And what I mean by that is there's a difference in surrounding yourself with people and then surrounding yourself with your people. And what I mean by that is those are advocates for you. Those are people that genuinely want to see you win, and they're willing to offer whatever support is necessary to make that happen. I was blessed in that my parents have always been a support. They didn't know I was homeless. I didn't tell them. So my parents would have never let me go through that if I had told them what was going on. I thought I had to go through it because I knew one day that it would be a part of my story, which it is. But surround yourself with people who will fight for you and fight with you for what it is that you believe in. And do not resist getting help. Don't allow stigma to keep you from getting, whether it's therapy, whether it's treatment, For some people, it's medication. Whatever that is, don't allow stigma to keep you from getting the help that you need in order to find stability, because everything you want to do stems from that. So surround yourself with the right people and do not allow stigma to keep you from getting the help you need to be able to move forward.
Great advice. So surround yourself with good people. Don't allow stigma to get in the way. But now, this is a good one because I definitely chase my tail a lot. How can you narrow your focus if many things break your heart? What do you find? How do you find that one? The one that makes you cry the most? I mean, where do you go with that?
Well, I mean, passion isn't always a painful thing. I mean, you know, like my wife she studied dance since she was a little girl, and she teaches dance at Lakewood. That's one of the things she does at Joel's church. My wife wasn't hurt to want to pursue dance. It's what she loved. It grabbed her heart when she was a kid. Passion is not only delineated by pain. I want to be clear about that. It's a powerful motivator, but it's not the only one. You have to decide this is the key. Which one of those things also aligns in some way with your skills and also aligns in some way with your position, with your access, your relationships? Which one of those passions ties into something that you can earn a living with or build a career or an opportunity with? There are a lot of things. I'm passionate about basketball. Let's keep it 1,000. But when I stopped growing at 5'9",
that was a game changer, huh?
It was a game changer. I think I might stick with the thing that I'm naturally suited to do. Music was always my gifting. Speaking was always my gifting. So I had to decide of all my there's a lot of other things I'm passionate about, but those were the things that I could build with because they aligned with my skills and they aligned with the opportunities that I had. That's how I would do it. Which one of your passions aligns with a skill or gift or talent you have and with doors that you can walk through to combine them? That's how you find your purpose. If you notice, you'll see some people that are successful in one thing and then they can bounce to all these other things. We watch those people all the time. It's not that their purpose changed, it's that their opportunities change as they become successful. I use The Rock as an example he's in my book too, but I talked about him in my talk with you guys today. He started in wrestling because that was the door that was open to him. But when he became successful there, then the door was open, the opportunity, the positioning shifted where he could step into Hollywood. He couldn't jump to Hollywood in the beginning. They wouldn't have taken him seriously. Start where you are with the thing that aligns with your proficiencies and with the doors that you have available to you now, and it will evolve as you go.
Wow, I can't see the chat right now, but I can imagine it's blowing up. There are so many little pearls that you're dropping. I hope we're capturing all of those in the chat.
Hope so.
If not, for sure, you're getting those in your notes.
Okay, no doubt.
So next question, what type of wraparound services, if there were some, that assisted you most in moving forward when you were homeless?
You know what? I didn't.
I'm sorry.
I didn't take advantage of any services. If I'm honest, I had a friend of mine and his wife that after I had that incident or the incident with the rats eating my food, I reached out to him and I said, bro, if I could just come and sleep on your sofa. I just need to get back on my feet. He was the head of a record label that I had done music production for before I was homeless. So he knew me and saw what I was going through, and he and his family would sometimes come to check on me, whether I was on the streets or wherever. They would come check on me because they lived in that neighborhood where I was homeless, in 5th Ward here in Houston, if you know the area. I just said, man, let me come sleep on your sofa. I'll get up and ride a bus and go find a job, but I need to be able to have a place I can call home to do that. And he and his wife allowed me to come and sleep on their sofa just to get back on my feet. I didn't know that the Salvation Army had all these services to help homeless people. I didn't know I didn't know about NAMI at the time. That's why when I found out about those things and I was already successful and had a name, I wanted to leverage every bit of influence I had to shine a light so other young me's would know that there's help available. I didn't know there was help. So my friends were the ones. That's why my first thing was get people that are your people around you, because my people were the ones that loved on me and helped me to get back on my feet. And even now with everything we've accomplished, they're all still a part of my life now.
Awesome. You got to keep loving those folks that love on you when in your time of need, for sure.
You better.
And don't take them for granted. We're learning that more and more during this COVID crisis, right?
This is true.
Next question. Can you address gaps in employment in reference to getting back in the workforce for people that are living with mental health challenges?
Yes, you're going to face challenges with that. Employers are going to look at those gaps and some of them will judge you for those. The name of the game is, if you've got an opportunity, I have found in my experience that if you can be honest with people, not so much saying, hey, I had mental health challenges, because some people, the stigma would keep them from giving you the opportunity. But with everything going on in our world right now, there's never going to be a better time for you to use a gap and an opportunity to get back on your feet. How many people lost their job now to have a gap? So people right now are going to be more understanding of a gap, because some of them and people they know have had to deal with the gap. Hey, listen, I fell on hard times. I had some hard circumstances, and I'm really trying to make this opportunity the one for me and for my family. Now people will extend more grace. If you asked me this a year ago, Vicki, I would have a whole different answer for that. But right now, after everything we faced as a nation globally, people will have more grace for you needing to take time away or trying to find yourself. Be honest. I fell on hard times. I made some bad decisions, and I'm trying to make the right ones now. And I want to make this opportunity count. Go in there ready, know the company, know what they do, know how you can contribute. If you had experience before, make sure that those skills are sharp. Get in some type of skill work. All that stuff is online now. You can develop or polish any skill in any area pretty much now online. Why wouldn't you take this time to do that? So when you walk in the door, even if you had a gap, you are still the most qualified for that position. Take advantage of where we are as a country right now.
Absolutely. I'm definitely one to push that one right now. I'm thinking everything's virtual. There's no excuse. You know, if you're here sitting in your house and doing things remotely, now's the time definitely to take advantage of that. So we had another question, but before we get to that, you mentioned about a book that you have coming out. And what inspired you to write that book, and where can we find it? I know folks are going to be wanting to know where they can get that.
Got it. The book's already out. I actually wrote it during COVID. The book is called In the Right Seat, and it encompasses all the things that I've talked about and many more stories of people in a variety of industries that found their purpose and how they combine the passion, proficiency, and positioning to find their purpose. And it gives you examples from my own life of things where I've raised millions of dollars and been very successful, combining the three to give you a roadmap to follow. The thought was, when I realized during COVID, about a month in, that we were going to be at home for a while. See, at first I thought it was a vacation. I remember telling my wife, we're going to watch. I'm telling Vicki, I was working so hard in the studio at the time and had so much going on, public speaking. And I just come back from speaking with you guys in Austin a month before COVID hit. Like I was on the go. And I remember telling my wife when it first happened, I thought it might be a few weeks we'd be shut down and they'd get it under control. I was like, girl, we finna eat some good food. And we're going to watch Netflix and catch up on our shows and play video games and enjoy this time. But then about 3.5 weeks, almost a month in, when all the people started dying in New York and those numbers started going up, I remember telling my wife, I call her Queen, I said, Queen, we're going to be here for a while. We might be here through the summer. And we ended up being home all that time. I told her all the things that we said we wanted to do that we never had the time, let's do them now. Number one on that list for me was writing a book. So I got my wife and my kids and said, hey, listen, when you see me over there working, let me work. Now, when I'm with y'all watching TV, y'all got my attention, but let me work. I need to get this book done. And I wrote and published and released the book during COVID. And it's available on my website, billydorsey.com.
Awesome. Thank you. So I understand that we have someone coming in with a question. So they've raised their hand. If you could go ahead and come in with a question.
Okay, thank you so much. Billy, very inspiring. I really appreciate everything you had to say. I have a question. I'm a licensed codependency counselor, and I work with a lot of youth as well. And some of my, let's say, young African-American men that come in and they have a criminal history, no GED, and basically an existential crisis. And I'm really burdened to try to find some kind of purpose in life. What can we find in life? I'll ask questions like, where would you like to see yourself 5 years from now? Or, and there's this sense of lack of hope or lack of, I won't have an opportunity to get there. So, I ask about the GED, when would you be interested in that? Or are you, so what would you, if you were in my shoes, where would you start? How would I probe this existential crisis and just to help get on your feet, find something you enjoy doing?
If you're dealing with young Black men, let's speak to that specifically. And thank you for your question, Dennis. Those are the wrong questions. For a young Black man that's grown up in the inner city, that in many cases, and I'm generalizing, so I know this is not true for all of us, but If he's grown up in the inner city, odds are his father is probably not in the home, or
That's
if he's
correct.
in the home, he's not emotionally there. He has watched his parents or parent struggle to provide. A lot of young inner city men, young Black men in particular, find themselves in a life of crime, not out of any sense of, I want to flash or any of that. That's not what leads to it. It's seeing mom working 2 jobs. It is the struggle that they see their families going through. It is the only family that they know is the gang, the people that are on the street that embrace them, because dad wasn't there to do it. They didn't have older brothers to do it. Older brothers dead or in jail. These guys are my family, so I'm going to do what they do because we do it together. To that young man, he can't see 5 years down the road. And if you're asking questions the way you or I would ask them to each other, you're missing it with those young guys. The thing for them is you start with the pain paradigm. You start, and it's not so much that what breaks their heart would lead them directly to their purpose, but the same way I talked about using fear as a propellant to push you forward, you have to use their pain to do that. You talk about the things that allowed them to find themselves in that position. Why didn't they finish school? Did they stop going to school because they were trying to provide and ended up doing the wrong thing? Why did they not get their education? Was it because they had no role models before them that valued education? My mom and dad weren't going to let me not go to school. I didn't have a choice. But I have many of my friends and certainly people that I mentor that is their reality. They didn't have that to push them forward. So talking about a 5-year plan for them isn't going to work. It is what brought you to this moment, and how do you keep that from happening if you have a son? How do you keep, if you have daughters, how do you make decisions now that make life better for them? That's pain and it's fear, but it's using it as a motivator to turn them from their path. You've been in this situation, young man, and I understand why you got there. They're telling you their stories. You know what got them there. How do we break this cycle? Not just for you, because some of them are nihilistic. They don't care about their own lives because nobody ever taught them the value of it. They don't value it. As a youth pastor, I dealt with young men that dealt with the same concerns you're talking about, Dennis. I get it. But those young men, that's my conversation. You're here because of what happened to you, but one day you're going to have a son. How do we turn your life around so he has a good example? Your dad wasn't there. How do we change that for you so that your son has you to look up to? Because if you keep down the road you're heading down, if you're even alive, you won't be the example for him, and you're going to watch your son or your daughter go through the same things you've gone through. It's not about the future for them. It's about changing and breaking the cycles of their past. That's how you help them to at least focus in the right direction. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. It's amazing how many even told me they didn't think they'd live to 30. I hear that quite often, that I wouldn't even thought I was going to live this long. And I thought, wow,
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've got friends now that at our age, they're still, we have those conversations regularly, that they're still surprised that some of us lived as long as we've lived now. All of us are married, all of us have families, all of us have businesses, but half of us weren't supposed to make it here. Yeah. It's a common thing. And unfortunately, there are not enough people like you who care enough to ask those questions.
So would you think at least kind of encouraging a GED or vocational skills or examine vocational skills would be a good place to start?
Yes, it is. But those people aren't going to, and when I say those people, I mean those young guys. They're not going to even open up to you in that way unless they feel you care. You got to show them that you care by hearing their stories and hearing the things that led them to where they are. If they will trust you, if you build enough of a rapport that they will trust you with their pain, trust you with their past, you can help to lead them to the future. Yes, GED, get that education, because then your kids have something to aspire to. Get a vocation, because then you can build a career that nobody can take from you. That only works, though, if they trust you. You got to keep building rapport with them.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for those answers. Thank you, Billy.
Great questions, Dennis.
Great question. So I'm getting a flag like, hey, you better start winding it down. So one last question, and that is, what other endeavors do you have planned for the near future?
Wow. I am getting ready to, wow, that's a great, I wasn't expecting that question. Thank you for that. I was literally just talking today. I am a part owner in a company called Friendly Sky that we do live stream concerts and events. So we have Sheryl Crow and Winona Judd. On the R&B side, we've got Kenny Lattimore and artists of that magnitude. I just had a conversation today with our sales team. We're looking at expanding that to sports and to public speaking and all those things. So as the world starts to open back up, you're going to see a lot of events that have limited capacity where they're doing some live streaming and some ticketed events, that's what we do. So we already have been doing it for celebrities behind the scenes. We're actually going to step now, as the world starts to open back up, into promoting and marketing that to expand it even more. So that's my number one thing, and expanding the opportunities to public speak. I love this. And I love the opportunity to interact with people, and I want to do it a lot more. And so we're also going to be investing our time and energy into growing my In the Right Seat brand for these opportunities.
Well, I would definitely say you are headed in the right direction. You are gifted at what you do, and you found your passion. We learned that you find your proficiency, first of all, which you found, your passion, and then it's about your positioning. And so I would say all of those things have lined up very nicely for you. And we wish you the best. We bless you. We thank you for your time today. And any closing words of advice, encouragement, shout outs, anything you want to share with us before we end this wonderful session. Time well spent.
Thank you. I would say to everybody that's watching this, I would just want to encourage you as we go through this time of change. There's never going to be a better time for you to reinvent yourself. If you have spent the years up to this point doing something that you're not passionate about, there's a 2017 study by Deloitte that said 70% of all employees are doing something that they are not emotionally connected to. They're working a job to provide, but it's not something intrinsically connected to their purpose. So you're not alone. Don't feel like you've lost time. You haven't. You've been building skills. You've been developing proficiency in whatever you're doing. But this year, while we're still in this period of flux, is the opportunity for you to reinvent yourself and to find your right seat, where your proficiency and your passion and your positioning intersect for you to walk into your purpose. I can't wait to hear the story. So connect with me at billydorsey.com. I want to know all about you. If I can help you to find your right seat, I'd be happy to do that. I love you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Billy. And I want to thank you for just sharing your knowledge and your insight with us, being so honest and transparent. And many thanks to all of you that are out there that are enjoying this session as well for joining us today. We ask again that you please take a few minutes to complete the workshop survey. Y'all already know the drill, right? It helps us know how we're doing. Also, you'll find the link in the chat, so check that out. Go in there and complete that survey. And again, thank you for your time. Thank you, Billy Dorsey, for being here with us today and honoring us with your presence. Thanks again to everyone for participating, for that lively chat. Y'all have this Hoover thing down really well. So thanks for your lively chat. And also, please, guys, be safe out there, and we will see you in the next sessions. So you can go away for a minute, but not for long. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.